You're 33 years old and you still throw temper tantrums like a toddler over people not liking Disney Star Wars and Disney remakes. Would you like it if I attacked you for liking a movie I didn't like? No, you wouldn't. Hi, you stupid f***. If you actually kept up to date, you would know more behind what happened and how I've already disavowed that video multiple times over. Disney Star Wars and the live-action remakes are inherently toxic and should not be treated as harmless. You see toxicity in everything. It's amazing. So you don't think Rey falling in love with her abuser with nay a single line of dialogue between them from the last time he tried to kill her to the kiss is problematic? You actually need to be smacked across the skull with a sledgehammer. Holy shit. You know, I looked at my calendar this morning and was shocked to find it didn't say 2025. It said 808.
Peter, the horse is here.
Hey guys, isn't it great when someone who did something terrible to you when you were a minor decides to completely flip the script and throw the remorse out the window when you're officially old enough to beef with publicly? Better yet, isn't it great that someone who literally got chased off the internet for being a completely insufferable human to everyone around them thinks they can just make a comeback of some kind? Isn't it great how all it takes to come back from actual ruin is to go, hey guys, I'm a changed person now, while continuing to do the exact same things that got you chased away in the first place? Isn't it simply fantastic that someone like that can just come back and somehow genuinely convince people that they're not completely full of it? If you're new here and have no idea what any of this is about, first of all, welcome to the channel. I promise you these kinds of videos are not the norm. And second of all, I have a full video about MisAnthro pony that is now approaching 3 years of age that I recommend checking out. If you just want the short version of what happened back then let me fill you in. Skip ahead to the next chapter if you don't want the TLDR. MisAnthro pony was a YouTuber who I used to be loosely associated with back in 2020 to 2021. We both made videos criticizing movies and TV shows, and had similar opinions on the declining quality of films and television at the time, but we were never really close enough to the point that I'd call him a genuine friend of mine, something he very clearly did not realize. I also had plenty of reservations about the guy myself because of his anger problems and how angry he'd get in videos.
Forgive the psychotic bitch who brutally killed Joel in front of you, bit off your fingers, and threatened to slit the throat of your pregnant girlfriend? What double standard backwards bullshit is that? I don't care if he called you the C word, just take the damn sandwiches.
Unlike a lot of YouTubers who exaggerate their anger for comedic effect, Anthro would genuinely scream at just about anything he was talking about, and his activity outside of videos proved this wasn't all just a bad act of his. He has a well-documented history of getting way too heated at people online who criticize him and his conduct, and he specifically had a very unhealthy obsession with people he called his hate-dom that he still has to this day. It should be noted that there are definitely people out there who take their issues with Anthro to an insane degree, and definitely do talk about him far more than necessary, and to that end it makes sense why he'd be frustrated with these people. But even people who aren't even being unhinged with the things they say about him or towards him tend to get the exact same angry responses, and sometimes he would take it a step further and actively seek these people out, regardless of how civil they were, on completely separate platforms to where the argument initially took place, and sending them a bunch of long, nasty messages. Anthro also regularly got in trouble during the time he was in my old Discord server for constantly bringing his unrelated beef with certain people to the discussion channels and for constantly bringing the mood down, along with a lot of angry rants about SJWs and identity politics. Ooh, just a constant stream of green flags, am I right? To the point that my moderators had to frequently tell him to stop running his f***ing mouth. Now, it should be noted that in 2020 I was 15 years old, going on 16. My birthday is July the 9th for anyone wondering, please send a gift, so I was pretty young at the time I actually met Anthro. And it should also be noted that MisAnthro pony is over a decade older than me. I believe he was like 27, 28 at the time we met? I'm not entirely sure. It's also worth noting that especially back in 2020 and all the way through to 2023, I was in a very bad spot mentally. In case you're wondering, I'm doing a lot better nowadays. I have pretty bad anxiety and specifically tend to get anxiety attacks when people scream angrily. Not when I do it myself though. Have you seen me play Overwatch?
Why are you gripping me towards them, you psychopath?
But the point is that at this point in time in my life, the last thing I needed was an unhinged adult nearly going on 30, going on constant angry rants, including in my own Discord server, who I genuinely felt uncomfortable around. On top of this, I had found out he was also attacking someone I'm mutuals with, and following them over to DeviantArt and their YouTube channel just to send him a bunch of hate mail. Due to this, in 2021, I decided to block Anthro and cut all ties with him and just go on with my life. If you think I should have explained to Anthro what my problem with him was before cutting ties, please keep note that I was not particularly close to him at all, and he was also a nearly 30-year-old man and I was 16. I did not feel comfortable with him around and I was suffering from severe anxiety. Not to mention, given his previous conduct online, even towards the most civil of Twitter arguments, I did not want to take my chances with a personal confrontation. If you get blocked by someone you're not very close to, you are not owed much much of an explanation, especially if you are a 30-year-old man and the person blocking you is a minor. So then about a year passes and suddenly I start getting some very strange Twitter replies from some random accounts saying, ooh, if you don't get in contact with MisAnthro Pony, he's gonna put you in a video blasting his haters. Ooh, it was MisAnthro Pony. It was MisAnthro Pony, okay? At the start of 2022, Anthro, being the glowing brain genius that he is, decided to hop on a sock puppet account and start threatening me while pretending he was a completely different person. And it wasn't very hard to figure out it was Anthro, given he was saying a bunch of shit that only Anthro himself would have knowledge about, especially because me blocking him was not a public ordeal, it was quite private and discreet. And also the entirety of the account's reply history was him beefing with literally anyone who was even mildly critical of MisAnthro Pony, which included some of my mutuals, Halfun. So after Anthro decided to equip the worst sock puppet account in recorded history, I fully put him on blast on Twitter. Blair TV, a former friend of mine, also grilled him in DMs over this, but I'd rather not talk about all the shit that went down with her because the story has enough side characters in it already. Let's just get to Lio. This would then catch the attention of Lio Convoy. Just to be clear, Lio has plenty of his own problems and I haven't associated with him since the beginning of last year, so hold your complaints. Who then marched straight into a call Anthro was in his server and got him to fold and admit the account was him in no time flat because he's the only person in the world Anthro seems to actually be scared of. After this, there was a massive fiasco with Anthro impulsively making 2 terrible and now deleted apology videos towards me, but long story short, Anthro, a 30-year-old man, couldn't handle being randomly blocked by a 16-year-old who wasn't even close to him, and as a result, about a year later decided to baby rage and send threats while pretending to be someone else and made a complete and utter ass of himself in the process. Okay, recap over. Welcome back anyone who skipped that last section. Since the events of early 2022, a lot has happened in regards to MisAnthro Pony. For starters, he took everyone's advice and changed his name to have a much less unfortunate acronym, but what happened after I dropped my video and set the record straight? This is all necessary context so you have a better grasp of what's recently happened and why I now feel the need to make this video. I will try to be as brief as I can. After taking a massive break, Anthro came back to YouTube claiming to be much better than he was previously. He wasn't. Within only a year of doing this entire channel rebrand and telling everyone that he's gotten his act together and he's putting his life back together by getting a job and stuff, everyone found out he was doing the sock puppet shit to people again, and this time he was saying far more graphic and violent things. And after constantly being given second chances by many of his friends and associates, he just kept doing it. This would eventually lead to Lio Convoy kicking him to the curb. If you're curious, watch those videos because they contain the full unedited calls of Anthro being confronted on his unhinged behavior, including one taken while Anthro himself was at work. Really shows where his priorities are.
Here, I have to talk to you.
Chris, go to work.
And would also culminate in the most fascinating way I have ever seen a person press a self-destruct button. Anthro's final video before deleting his channel out of shame was a video where he desperately tried to convince his audience that he was going to be better, and then ended the video by clutching a memento for his dead father and saying,
"No more burner accounts. No more angry messages."
Do I need to explain why this is the most terminally online thing you could ever post on the internet? And that's kinda how things ended for MisAnthro Pony. He deleted his channel shortly after, and that was for the best, for literally everyone involved. Anthro has proven for nearly a decade that he should not be allowed to have a platform like this. Having a platform of tens of thousands of people, while a small feat in YouTube terms, is still a big deal. And this was very clearly going straight to the dude's head. He couldn't handle being criticized, he couldn't just ignore his haters. Like, I get responded to the odd hater every now and then with a bit of snark, it makes for a very entertaining conversation, but he would respond to all of them, and having this be a public outlet for his anger issues that put him on full display to be mocked and ridiculed by anyone with the sense to realize that being this angry over Star Wars and The Last of Us is completely irrational was not healthy for him. I am of the opinion that MisAnthro Pony does not deserve and should not have a platform. All it does is bring out the worst in him, and from the way he was describing his life after his original YouTube break, it genuinely seemed like he had a lot going for him. He had a stable job, he was making friends at work. For the standards of being a 30-year-old man, he had it pretty good, but he just can't keep himself away from YouTube. Like, dude, I get it. I have anxiety, and I sometimes worry about what people think of me online too. It's a completely natural feeling that a lot of people have. But when you're crumbling to pieces at the sight of any negativity towards you or your content to the point that you feel the need to send a bunch of angry, vile messages, you gotta stop, you know? And for a while, he did stop. But unbeknownst to all, there was a devil leaning on Anthro's shoulder, and his name was just a robot.
For those of you who don't get the joke.
Alright, here's where we get into all the recent stuff involving MisAnthro Pony, and this unfortunately means I'm gonna have to talk about just a fucking robot. If you've been on the commentary side of YouTube since October 2024, there's no doubt you're familiar with this guy over the Cinebear stuff. So let me get something off my chest real quick. I hate Just a Robot. The shit that this guy has done to several of my close friends and associates has to be seen to be believed. And this was before the VidCon 2024 incident where he was just stalking and following us at the convention. Yes, I was there. I was the entire reason we were able to spot him before he ambushed us, because one of my mutuals sent me their DMs with him on Discord where he took a photo with Turkey Tom at the convention. This is also the most terrified I have ever seen Tom look in my entire life. If I hadn't been sent that selfie he took, we likely wouldn't have spotted him in time and would have been fucked. I'm not talking about all this to brag. Okay, partly I am. I am just the coolest cookie. I am bringing up all of the Just a Robot stuff to prove a point, because can you imagine what I felt knowing that this man, who has blatantly disrespected and violated the boundaries of my friends for ages, can you imagine what I was feeling when I found out that he was re-uploading old MisAnthro Pony videos to his dying YouTube channel? And can you also imagine what I felt knowing that on top of this, he was getting MisAnthro Pony to make new videos for him? What is reality? Now, if you think giving Anthro a platform again after he was finally driven away and was getting his act and life back together is a stupid fucking idea, well, so did Jar apparently, because back when I uploaded my video on Anthro, he publicly commented on it, expressing his disappointment in his actions. And it's not like Jar was completely blind to everything Anthro was up to after claiming to be reformed during his Zide Magenta days, because he was not only a close friend of MisAnthro, but was also a close friend to Lio Convoy. Do not imagine how it would smell if all of these people were in a room together. And I know for a fact he was also a member of Lio's old Discord server, the Senate. Jar also states in his terrible response to the Cinebear fiasco he got himself into back in October, that several people had warned him about working with the guy and he was completely aware of how many red flags there were.
I decided to give him one more chance. His fans missed his content and, I'm not gonna lie, it made me some money. I really should have heeded the warnings of people who told me not to work with the guy.
Yes, he disregarded all of the warnings and evidence of Anthro being unhinged just so he could make more money. That's how dire things were for his channel last year. All of that out of the way though, Jar gave Anthro a platform again. And look, as much as I hated the idea, Anthro at least seemed to be behaving himself for a time, just being able to make content for a different person and not have to worry about having any social media accounts that people could harass him on, which could lead to him spiraling. If things remained like this, I still would have hated it, but at least no major catastrophes were likely to occur. Then Jar publicly tried defending a child predator and everything fell to pieces. Naturally, because of this, Anthro cut ties with Jar and told him to remove all of his content, old and new, from his channel. And if Anthro had some bloody sense, he would probably call it quits here. However, Jar allowing Anthro to make videos on his channel, regaining the support of his lost fans and reigniting his passion for video creation, yeah, wasn't your best move, mate. Jar knew exactly what he was doing by letting Anthro do this. Whether he was smart enough to see where it ended up going is up for debate, considering he probably didn't ask his roommate for advice this time. And after all of this went down, Anthro decided to finally return to YouTube with a brand new channel called Diaz Station. His content consists of okay, it's just the same content that he's been making for about a decade now. Really angry, overdramatic rants about the state of Hollywood, and repeating the same talking points he's had about Star Wars and everything for the past 7 years. Okay, I don't get this, actually. I didn't really talk much about Anthro's content in my first video because it was hardly relevant. That video was just about his actions towards me specifically, but I really have to ask, are you really happy making these kinds of videos, dude? Because you don't sound happy. You can have whatever opinion you want on Hollywood, Star Wars, The Last of Us, SJWs, I don't give a flying f**k. Not asking you to change any of that. But you always seemed pissed off that people don't vibe with the kinds of videos you make and don't seem to realize that half the reason you get so many people responding negatively to you is because the vibes are rancid.
And Anita Sarkeesian would never forgive a man who acts mean to a woman. And you know what? Fuck the idea that Ellie having a flashback of Joel would stop her from wanting to kill Abby. The Star Wars sequel trilogy was more consistent than you.
I guarantee more people would just settle for respectfully disagreeing with you and moving on with their day if you didn't talk so aggressively in every video. If that's what you want to be known for, then fine, no one's gonna stop you. But you have to at least have the self-awareness to realize that the way you present your content and talk in videos is super unpleasant to a lot of people. Doesn't justify the people harassing you, let's be clear. But if I'm gonna give any constructive feedback in this video, it would just be this. Just loosen up a little. I get that Star Wars and a lot of these properties mean a lot to you, but making angry, unpleasant content and then being shocked that people don't vibe with it is an endless cycle. You can be negative, but there's a fine line between negative criticism and being unpleasant. Okay, that's the constructive part over and done with. Let's get on to the reasons why I am currently making this video. Now that Anthro has his own independent platform and Lio no longer has the ability to wrangle him in when he does something stupid, Anthro seems to now think he's untouchable, and I've seen in his comments that some of his fans are way too gullible for their own good. Oh, you think he's improved and no longer harasses people? That's cute. Open up his Blue Sky account and scroll through his reply history for 5 seconds and tell me what problems you can see. Hey, Anthro, why do you think telling someone they should be smacked across the head with a sledgehammer over a bad take on Star Wars is even remotely acceptable? It may not be a sock puppet account this time, but make no mistake, he is doing the exact same shit that he was doing previously. Finding posts talking about him and angrily inserting himself into the conversation, and he's even tracking people down from Twitter just to grill them on Blue Sky. Like, I need you guys to process how insane this is actually. There are some people on Blue Sky who have previously talked about Anthro negatively on Twitter, big shock. Some people were probably harsher than others, but it doesn't matter. Do you not see how insane it is that Anthro is willing to name search himself on Twitter, find posts talking about him from ages ago, track down the people that made them to their active Blue Sky accounts, and then start an argument under a completely unrelated post? Some of these people are just minding their own business, and then here comes Captain Star Wars throwing around insults and mindlessly harassing them. I truly do not give a damn if some of these people may have had harsh things to say about you, Anthro. How do you justify this? I can verify that a lot of the people you do this to don't even harass you. They just talk negatively about you. Yeah, it hurts to see people say negative things about you, but unless they're in your face and being a dick about it, you gotta just suck it up. It's the internet, and you cannot go around strong-arming people like this when they're doing literally nothing wrong. This post is from a fucking year ago, you absolute baby. Why are you grilling this person over something they said about you on Twitter a year ago? The last video you made on your channel had you swearing on your father's ashes to not do this kind of stuff ever again. You deleted your channel because you kept doing this stuff. How is anyone supposed to believe that you've changed when this is what you do in your downtime? Heck, as I was making this video, he went ahead and did it again to Crimson Mayhem, someone who many people in the cartoon community are likely familiar with. Literally just doing nothing and minding their own business, and then suddenly Anthro starts a fight. He tries to justify this by bringing up his issues with Crimson, like how in the past he failed to properly report an active child predator, which is absolutely something worth criticism, but ignoring the fact that this happened years ago and Crimson has long since acknowledged they f***ed up, this isn't criticism. This is just unhinged name-calling just because you have a grudge. He makes it very clear it has nothing to do with Crimson's actual mistakes and moral misjudgments, because he directly references one specific instance years back where Crimson lightly made fun of him for crashing out over The Simpsons on Twitter, and given he seems to be holding a grudge against everyone who made fun of him for his Simpsons tweets, why do you think he suddenly went after Crimson? Hell, this isn't even limited to Blue Sky and Twitter. On his community tab on his channel, he is making posts about very specific people and putting them on blast in front of his audience. Granted, I recognize the person in question here and can verify they have been rather obsessive about their dislike of Anthro, so he has grounds to be frustrated, but nothing justifies making a post to all of your subscribers about this one guy you don't like, shaming them for a bunch of Twitter posts that have nothing to do with you, and on top of that, linking their YouTube channel in said post. Just by doing this, you have set this person up for harassment from your fans, and regardless of what they've said about you or done to you, why do you think this is a sane or morally justifiable thing to do? And don't act like you don't know what you're doing here. You've been playing this YouTube game far too long to feign ignorance and act like this wasn't a thinly veiled call to harass someone. People have been trying to tell you for years to either ignore these people or just lightly make fun of them and move on. Trying to get your community to harass them is not going to do you any favors. Hi everyone, Editing Cartoonchi here. As I was finishing up this video, Anthro started responding to more people on the same thread this sledgehammer comment took place on, and when pressured on why he just told someone they should have their brains smashed out of a sledgehammer over an opinion on Star Wars, he proceeded to say that he wants to assault people who quote-unquote think it's okay for Lucasfilm to fetishize the abuse between Rey and Kylo. I think, regardless of how badly Rise of Skywalker handled the romance between these two, that this is probably one of the most insane things this man has ever said. No one in this thread is making the claim that it's okay for Lucasfilm to fetishize abuse, ignoring that Rise of Skywalker was clearly not fetishizing abuse, it was just a really poorly written romance, and I highly doubt that fetishizing abuse is one of the main things people take away from this movie. Regardless of how valid the critique itself is, openly saying you want to assault anyone who doesn't consider Star Wars to be abusive is a f***ing wild take to have, and this makes the previous sledgehammer comment a lot worse. When Anthro makes these kinds of thinly veiled threats against people with these incredibly violent scenarios, his main main defense is always that he's not directly saying he'll be the one committing the violence, just that he wishes it would happen to the person he's talking to. This admission of wanting to assault people over a Star Wars opinion, though, is a whole different story, and makes the sledgehammer comment even more unhinged in retrospect. Just thought I'd add this on here before we continue, because no way was I gonna pass up the opportunity to mention that this man just straight up wants to assault people over their thoughts on Star Wars. I guess we can now jump into Anthro's video talking about his return to YouTube with all this context in mind, and afterwards we'll finally discuss what he's been saying about me recently, and why I think it might just be the most embarrassing set of tantrums I've seen a 32-year-old man have about someone over a decade younger than them I have ever seen.
I have had something of a reputation of being critical of horrible movies, TV shows, and video games in ways that the Twitter crowd finds offensive, as I am more objective and final in my analysis compared to most other reviewers. This drew the ire of people like this guy, who thinks the internet should be an open-minded place where everyone is accepted and respected for their opinions and the media they like regardless of how wrong they are, while at the same time having fits of rage towards people who criticize disposable Hollywood garbage he happened to like, such as Disney's Star Wars or Rings of Power.
I genuinely don't know how anyone watched this video and came to the conclusion that Anthro had changed. Under a minute into this video and he is already choosing to put some actual f***ing nobody on screen, who I am going to assume has had beef with Anthro in the past or said something negative about him, putting his face front and center and then flashing up a bunch of screenshots of him, I don't know, being a dick on Twitter. Who cares about this? Why do you feel the need to go on a rant about this random guy? No one cares. What is the point of putting them on blast like this? Just ignore them. If your intent with this video is to convince people you're sorry for your past actions, you're not doing a very good job at that.
My videos, as well as my old Twitter account, attracted the ire of people who don't like being told that something is objectively bad or how they're stupid for having horrible opinions.
Anthro, this right here is why so many people take issue with you. You fundamentally do not understand or respect anyone who has a different opinion to you. It's very visible in your comments as well. I went over every single video you have uploaded on your new channel and counted multiple instances under each video where you completely crash out on people for no justified reason. Either they simply disagreed with you or you had a small argument with them. There are obviously instances where you're being antagonized, but the sheer number of times you tear into someone for either politely disagreeing with you or having a small argument with you is mind-blowing. Like, just read this for a second. This person, while being a tad rude to you, did not deserve you suddenly swinging around in anger and saying, "You are disgusting who deserves every bad thing that's ever happened to you." Like, holy shit, they wrote a dumb YouTube comment. You don't need to publicly crucify them, Mr. Horse. This is a common occurrence. You just cannot accept that some people like a movie or TV show or video game that you don't like or think is objectively bad. Liking something is not a crime, and the way you treat people over this is honestly pathetic. And your obsession with calling people this is incredibly interesting, actually. Alright, buckle up everybody, let's go on a tangent about the concept of ableism. Now, my problem isn't necessarily that Anthro does ableist shit, like, wow, fork found in kitchen. It's the fact that he just refuses to f***ing own it and constantly has to justify his usage of the R word like a quivering pussy. Anthro really likes using the word for some reason. It's his go-to insult, actually, using it angrily and insultingly against people who are either being dicks towards him or people who have quite literally done nothing wrong. And I don't want to police him too bad for using the word, because number one, he's on the spectrum himself, and number two, back when I was a teenager, I also used the word a couple times in a joking manner. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed to find a YouTuber that hasn't. It's something I've done a good job of removing from my vocabulary because I don't like making people uncomfortable when they watch my videos for whatever reason they have, but that's besides the point. Anthro is not unique for saying the R word. He is unique for using it like a slur, though. I think there does need to be an honest conversation here about Anthro's insistence that his usage of the word is not ableist, and that the word itself is not a slur, because to be frank, it's bullshit, he's just wrong. While it's true that the word is a medical term, it doesn't change the fact that it was turned into a slur to target disabled people or people on the autism spectrum, and it's been that way for decades. Any word can become a slur for a specific group of people if it's taken and then used as one on a massive scale. It doesn't mean the word should never be used again in its original context divorced from the hate, it just means you shouldn't use the word like a slur. Just because I can say Joey Deacon's name doesn't mean I'm using his name as a slur for people with cerebral palsy, because yes, that is a thing, it's more a UK thing than a US thing, but it's still related. Lots of people can relate to being called based on them being disabled or autistic while as a kid in school or during adulthood. It's true that people also like to use it as just a general insult to people who say something stupid, especially online, which is evidently not the same as using the word to target disabled or autistic people, though it is its own can of worms. But given Anthro likes to frequently use the term autists or calling things autistic as an insult whenever he doesn't feel like using the R word, I don't think calling his usage of the word ableist is a stretch whatsoever. He also just blatantly makes up to defend his usage of the word, like claiming 4chan are the people that turn turned it into a slur? Yes, what's the source for that claim, Mr. Horse? I made it up. Looking into it, his reasoning for all of this seems to be that if he's not allowed to say the R word, then you might as well ban the entire English vocabulary, and it's like, no, dude, people just don't want you to call them a specific word over a disagreement about Star Wars. They literally just don't want to be treated poorly for disagreeing with you. I don't think it ever crosses Anthro's mind that a lot of people taking offense to him calling them the R word might actually be on the spectrum themselves. Look, at the end of the day, mate, if you're gonna use the word, then use the word. No one's gonna stop you. But acting like a pussy and trying to justify why you use it when you know precisely why people don't want to be called it arguably makes you look even more lame than if you were just using it without giving a fuck what people think. TLDR, people have the right to criticize you for not accepting people's opinions, and your reactions to people having different opinions to you are flat out embarrassing.
From false accusations of me being racist for criticizing the industry's actually racist practice of blackwashing white characters.
Okay, I'm not even gonna get into that one.
To lies about me being some sort of sexist for criticizing badly written characters that just happen to be strong, independent women.
This is a tweet from 2020. 5 years ago. Word of advice for you, stop name searching yourself. That's a tip to every content creator out there actually. Do not name search yourself, ever. It's a very bad habit and it's easy to fall into if you're not in the right frame of mind. It's an easy one to start when your channel starts blowing up, but don't do it. People who don't like you are going to be more vocal than the majority of people that do like you. That's just the fact of life and it comes with the profession. Holding on to 5-year-old tweets like this is not normal.
To lies about me being a far right-wing Trump supporter for talking about that one time Modern Simpsons tried shoving anti-Trump garbage down our throats.
Already a lot to unpack here. Firstly, this tweet is from 2021. Stop holding on to these tweets for years on end. I'd understand it if it was the same guy and you were trying to make a point about how obsessed they are over you, but these are two different people. Secondly, this screenshot is a massive nothing burger, and also don't think I didn't notice the poor editing on this image to include the new username and handle of the person tweeting this. If you ever try to make the argument that you're not trying to get people harassed, why do you feel it's necessary to name and shame someone so aggressively that you have to manually attach their new username and handle to this 4-year-old image? What kind of message do you think that sends exactly? Thirdly, oh my god, this image is also from 2021, just move on.
2, and I swear I'm not kidding here, comparing me to that guy who killed millions of people because they didn't fit his vision of a perfect German empire, over gatekeeping The Simpsons from the retards who think the show's corpse being milked for the last 25 years isn't a bad thing, to man-children trying to paint me as one of the worst people currently on the internet for saying Space Jam 2 is a bad movie. Honestly, let's just move on to the next part because if I list out all of them, we're gonna be here for the rest of the year.
Let's analyze that entire rant very slowly because that was a lot to just dump at once. Firstly, yes, the funny German man tweet is a completely unhinged thing to say about someone, but also it was posted in 2021, you need to stop holding onto this stuff for so long. The next few tweets you show are from people who are pretty understandably confused why you were angrily calling people idiots for liking Modern Simpsons, and spending multiple tweets tweaking out over it. In your own words, you said, people like you are responsible for why The Simpsons is still being milked. Only a complete idiot would recommend or continue to watch that running corpse of a show. Does this seriously not seem like a massive overreaction to you? Let's also not ignore that you were not invited to that thread at all. The entire purpose of that thread was to spread some positivity about The Simpsons, and whether you like Modern Simpsons or not, coming in to crash on everyone's parade like that is just super lame. Like, I think Modern Simpsons is a two-pack of ass, and I feel bad that these guys had to be exposed to whatever this nervous breakdown of yours was. Everyone turning this into a copy pasta isn't them harassing you, it's them making fun of you for completely making an ass of yourself. Having the assessment of you not being able to accept differing opinions is not a stretch here, because that's literally what happened. You didn't accept some people like Modern Simpsons, jumped onto a thread that no one invited you to, proceeded to insult everyone there, and go on a massive rant. If you're mad that people made fun of you for that, then sorry dude, but your skin is paper thin. And also, once again, this was years ago! This is not recent! What the fuck are you doing? Even the people in these screenshots who are being dicks, like the guy who directly tagged you just to insult you about your Space Jam video, are simply not worth the effort putting on blast like this. Responding to them by making fun of them is fine, but this is just not that. Because to be blunt, mate, this makes you look so weak. Unless someone is spreading false, serious information about you or genuinely directly harassing you, do not put them on blast. The next example he uses is of a much more serious situation that happened, which I believe involved death threats being sent to him, I think, so he clearly knows that this is an appropriate thing to make an example of and go, hey, this is not not okay, can you please not do this, thanks. I just don't know why beforehand all that was shown was 5-year-old Twitter screenshots of people at worst saying something mean about you.
Dealing with these people every time I criticized something was causing me a lot of stress, and that stress eventually evolved into anger. I decided that I'm no longer going to tolerate the vile nonsense these people are doing to me because I didn't validate their feelings on some corporate product made by privileged Hollywood scum. I was putting together plans for a video talking about these people, but somewhere along the way I ended up going rogue, which led to me making a lot of horrible decisions.
Horrible decisions aside, you just really should not make that video, like, ever. There's a lot I can say about having a massive Google Drive dedicated to compiling screenshots of people saying mean things about you on Twitter. I know for a fact that many of the people listed in this image do not harass you, Anthro. At worst, they have said something mean about you publicly, and that's just not something you can say is comparable to the people in this file that I know did harass you and do terrible things to you. Your problem is that you conflate people saying something mean about you while minding their own business with the people that genuinely do harass you, and that's just blatantly bad faith. You don't have to like these people or respect them, Anthro, but going out of your way to smear them by putting them on the same level as some truly vile and degenerate individuals who have absolutely done you wrong is a blatant misuse of your platform.
As a result, I made burner account after burner account after burner account after burner account. All sorts of alts on Twitter and DeviantArt created to lash out at the people who wanted to ruin my image as a reviewer because I made a negative review of something they like, or because I didn't fit their rhetoric on how random people on the internet should be treated for their opinions on dog shit.
Dude, every time you have a potentially valid point coming up, you proceed to smite it down with this self-righteous pity party. You seem to be expressing remorse for making tons of burners to harass and attack people talking negatively about you, but then tack on at the very end that these people deserve to be treated a certain way because of their opinions on quote-unquote dog shit. It completely throws away any kind of sincerity that might have been there, and you just end up looking like you're reluctantly giving these people an apology because deep down you still can't accept that they have a different opinion to you. I'm not saying that is the case, but it is how it comes off as, and you gotta stop that.
The most infamous incident being the one I had with Cartoon Sheet.
Hey, look, it's me. Hello.
This eventually reached Lyle Convoy, who ripped into me for this and talked me into taking a 6 to 9 month hiatus from YouTube. I did what he said, and for a while things were getting better. Until my anger reached a boiling point again because my haters and harassers continued to come at me for whatever reason.
Firstly, install Grammarly for f***'s sake. Secondly, there is no reason to keep interrupting whatever point you're making by showing these screenshots on screen and then angrily ranting about whatever it was that made you angry. It doesn't matter. All that's important to this story is that you got angry and made a bunch of burners to harass people. That's all we need to know. You do not have to, nor can you even come close to justifying any of what you did based on these tweets.
This led me to deciding that the best thing to do was to delete my channel, to sever myself from YouTube and actually tend to other factors in my life. Work, exercise, staying in touch with family, and it was a pretty good several months. Almost a year, actually.
Correct. And I was happy you did that. Everyone was. I'd rather you actually live your life and be happy than willingly make yourself miserable with YouTube. No one asked you to come back.
Things have indeed gotten better in my personal life, from my relationships with family to my physique to my place at work. Even after losing both my parents to illness, we still stuck together and supported each other. And I am thankful to have those things in my life.
Like, dude, this is all fantastic. That's great to hear. Getting YouTube out of your life was the best decision you could have made. You were not built for it.
But somewhere along the way, I have to confess that I felt something missing. This hole that couldn't seem to be filled no matter what I did. It turned out that this hole was my passion for media criticism.
And there it is. YouTube withdrawal.
It wasn't something I did for money or the hope that I would get hundreds of thousands of views. It was something that I did because I simply had fun doing it.
I'm gonna be honest, man. I get you have a passion for this stuff, but you have to accept at some point that all YouTube does is bring out the worst in you. Each time you've taken a break, your life has dramatically improved without it.
Unlike 90% of people in the community who only think that all opinions are valid and need to be respected regardless of how wrong they are, I actually give a shit about movies, television, animation, and video games as expressive art forms.
Not a single screenshot you showed was damning whatsoever. It was literally just people saying that you do not respect other people for having different opinions, which is literally just true. Like, in that clip, you basically say that.
Coming back to YouTube wasn't going to be a walk in the park because of the actual, need to highlight that specific word because remember 95% of the backlash I get is from negative IQ Twitter roaches
Okay, we get it! Sorry, that wasn't funny. That was too loud.
That's when I was approached by Just a Robot.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
who at the time was a YouTuber who was respected and liked well enough in spite of his flaws.
No, he wasn't. The only people that liked Jar were his diehard fans. Literally everyone outside of him couldn't stand the guy, and nearly every single creator I have talked to who used to be friends with him absolutely hates his guts. Okay, so these next couple of minutes are just him explaining the sweet deal he got with Jar, glazing him, and then the eventual fallout when all the Cindy Bear drama happened, so let's just skip ahead.
That's when I knew that my only remaining option was to make a new YouTube channel with a new name.
No, you could have also just not made one. YouTube is not a necessity for you. You made the deal with Jar in the first place so you had an outlet for your creativity without being burdened with any of the backlash that could cause you to overreact and repeat past habits. The sensible thing to do after that deal falls through is to either find someone else to work for or call it quits. Your life's doing good, you don't need to throw it away again and relapse.
They said they were okay with me starting over on YouTube as long as I didn't repeat any of the Twitter and DeviantArt alt account stuff that I did last year. And I do wish to make a genuine effort to keep my word on that. I owe it to them.
The rest of the video is just him thanking people for giving him another chance and then angrily reading this comment he made out loud for like 5 minutes. I genuinely do not understand how anyone watched that video in full and came out of it with the impression that this man had changed, especially when you begin reading his comments. He can say he's sorry all he wants for all the stuff he did, and who knows, he probably is sorry somewhat, but that doesn't prove he's changed. Not at all. You can't just say that you're sorry and then proceed to keep doing the things that earned you your reputation in the first place, especially after saying in this video that you wouldn't do these things anymore. This is a really bad video, if the dislike ratio didn't give that away. But now that it's over and done with, we can finally discuss the main reason I decided to finally make this video: MisAnthro Pony's newfound obsession with walking back his guilt over what he did to me when I was a minor. Him constantly downplaying the severity of what he did to me by trying to argue that because I was 6 months off being 18 at the time, that it somehow made what he did less bad, and last but not least, my name now seemingly being a vocal stem for him because he literally cannot go 2 days without mentioning me just to insult me, lie about what happened in the first place, and heavily downplay the anxiety I was going through when I was 17. I didn't want to make this video because some weird grown-ass man made some mean comments about me. It's about what these comments represent and how they prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that this man has not changed and he is playing you all for fools. When he first began bringing me up, it was clear he was still somewhat worried about the optics of the situation given how hard it blew up in his face last time. The first few times he decides to mention me, he does it as carefully and respectfully as possible. Over time, though, you can visibly see him getting angrier and angrier with how he chooses to address me, throwing in petty jabs, trying to downplay the severity of what he did and refusing to acknowledge that he was blackmailing a minor just because I was half a year off being 18, which is, really gross, actually. That's really gross. That's really gross. Also, it wasn't 4 months, it was half a year. Stop trying to make yourself sound better. Like, what does this even mean? You think I was technically an adult because I had half a year to go before I turned 18? I was still a minor. You were 28. Why try and downplay what happened? I'm also very concerned with the fact that you proceed to copy-paste this exact argument multiple times whenever anyone asks you about the situation. It's very odd. The fact is, mate, that you threatened a minor on an alt account because they blocked you. Not to mention, this situation would still be bad even if I was 18. 18 makes you legally an adult, but humans don't just suddenly become fully grown and mature adults when they turn 18. That's not how it works. You would still be a 28-year-old man harassing and threatening someone who only recently turned 18. Regardless of how you try and downplay it, mate, you don't look good. And then he tries to rewrite history and say the reason I cut him off was because I can't handle online discourse or what he thinks about movies? As if 600,000 people haven't watched the original video and know that the reason I blocked you was because you were a weird and angry adult who made me uncomfortable. What makes this funnier is that this is the exact same argument he used in his now deleted apology video that no one liked. Like, you think you can get away with saying this now? Also, a lot of my videos are about covering online discourse anyway, so like, why are you lying? And by today, we're at the point where he has completely gone mask off of any sort of guilt or remorse he had, and seems completely comfortable just saying whatever he wants about me because no one gives enough of a shit to call him out on it. Which is completely valid, by the way. I almost didn't make this video until I saw all the stuff he was doing off-platform in conjunction with this, but it really shows how spineless he actually is and how he never meant a single word of any apology he tried to give for how he acted. Like, it's so obvious that he believed he was stepping on eggshells just uttering my name to begin with, and then over time started gradually taking his mask off and showing his his true colors. It also goes to show just how pathetic it is that the only person he was scared of and who kept him in check was Lio f***ing Convoy. Like, don't get me wrong, I still have some respect for Lio for the things he helped me out with, but the fact this 30-year-old man had to be wrangled in by Lio so he didn't act impulsively and blow up his career every 5 seconds is delightfully stupid. I'm not even mad he said all of this stuff. Someone let me know he was doing this like a month or two ago and I just found it funny, but it's the fact he keeps doubling down and being a complete hypocrite, trying to convince his fans that he's a changed man and everything is going to be different now, while continuing to engage in completely rotten behavior on and off platform in the public eye. It's just confusing to me, like, why are you doing any of this? Surely when you made your channel you had to just accept that the damage was done, right? You can't just undo all of what you did. I mean, for God's sake, your real life name is attached to all of this. No one's just gonna let you forget, so why take the route of trying to convince people you've changed while doing the exact same thing you got dumpstered for in the first place, then getting pissy when people rightfully point out that you haven't changed a bit? The math is not mathing. What are you doing, dude? Look, at the end of the day, if Anthro wants to continue making YouTube videos, no one's gonna stop him. But I hope that if he does take anything from this video, because yes, Chris, I know you're watching, I hope he actually learns that film, TV, and video games are not worth this level of vitriol, nor is demonizing others for their opinions. If you're gonna continue making videos, Anthro, don't be a pussy. You can keep up the act of being the big, tough, anti-Hollywood guy who doesn't give a shit what people think all you want, but it's fooling nobody. Everyone knows you care too much about what others think of you and it causes you to self-destruct. You've got a variety of different options here, none of which include changing your opinions and stuff, by the way. Don't worry, I truly do not care about that. Option 1. You keep doing what you're doing right now and eventually bark up the wrong tree like you're bound to do, which is not going to end well for you. Option 2. You adapt. Accept that what's done is done, stop giving people attention for completely minuscule things, and change the presentation of your content so that you don't have to make yourself angry reading every comment from people who understandably don't appreciate your tone. You can be negative, but you don't have to be angry or unpleasant. Option 3. Find someone else who is willing to work with you and make videos for their channel like you were doing with Jar. It's not ideal, but it's certainly better than whatever you're doing now. Option 4. Close up shop, get off the internet, and keep having a good life away from all of this. You've already explained in great detail that whenever you seem to take a break from YouTube, your life dramatically improves. Don't force yourself to do something that makes you angry and miserable just because it's a creative outlet for you. Chocolate is cool, but chocolate is also unhealthy. Don't get addicted to chocolate. Well, lost cause for me, I bought this today, but you get what I mean. I know I've been a bit mean in this video, and to be frank, given the things you've been saying about me and others, I could have been a lot meaner, but the last thing I want is to watch you self-destruct. Again, I get that you didn't care for Liar's video or any of his advice, and to be completely honest, I don't blame you. But I hope you can understand that any advice I have given you in this video does genuinely come from a sincere place. I'm not 17 anymore where I want absolutely nothing to do with you. Okay, I still don't want anything to do with you, but I'm not against the idea of giving you a way to actually get your life back on track. If you don't want to take my advice, then cool, fine, I don't care. I'm too busy earning from that get-rich-quick scheme you've been talking about. Ooh, look how much money the Invincible video made me. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Play Yakuza or some... Hey, I'm already playing that game.